What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another DE Hammer video. Today we're talking design, and we're going to jump into Illustrator and Inkscape. So you got a paid and a free way to make something similar to what I've designed here. This elephant wall art with acrylic and LEDs. Now you don't have to do either of those, but personally always love some LEDs. And I'm going to show you how you can do this design pattern on a path, and then we're going to talk about how I got these and how you can do that both in Illustrator and Inkscape. Plus, that was just the main attraction. Didn't want to waste any wood, so I also got this cool TV tray out of it, or this could also be wall art. Just pop on a little hanger there and could hang it up on the wall if you like. Before we get into the video, let's give a shout out to our sponsor, CNC Labs. Their latest edition is the MK2. They have 3 different options for sizes: 12 by 30, 30 by 30, 48 by 30. Already have a CNC machine? Need a sender? They got you covered. They have GSENDER. Go check that out. They got lots of machines already pre-configured. So thank you so much, CNC Labs, for sponsoring this video. Remember, also you can subscribe and click that bell button if you're on YouTube to keep up with all the latest DE Hammer videos. If not, you can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit. But let's not delay any further. Let's get into it. All right, to start off, first we need our subject, in this case an elephant. They just happen to be my wife's favorite animal, so that is why I decided to go with an elephant for this project. And as you can see here, this is my this is the project file for what ended up being this project. But let's start off at the beginning. And what I like to do is I like to have a layer for the image I want to trace out. We're going to lock it like that, and then we're going to start drawing on this layer. So we'll go over to our pen tool. Now, when drawing with the pen tool, you don't have to be precise, and we'll take care of rounding out corners and everything a little bit later after we get everything traced out here. But I do like to start off tracing overall outline of the image. So we'll just go around here and do this. And one of the things to keep in mind is how detailed do you want it to be? Is your bit going to be able to get into those areas? So there is a little bit of thinking to do while you're tracing this out. And I just went for the head on this, tracing it out, and we're just going to go along and just trace. And again, you can see I'm kind of inside there. If I really wanted to, I could come in here, really fine tune, come in here and get it. Okay, let's get it a little bit closer there and move this a little bit further out. But in the overall grand scheme of things, that doesn't really matter. So we're just going to come back. We're not going to worry about cleaning up the nodes. And I can't remember if I already mentioned it. Don't worry, we're going to clean up these very tight corners that we're seeing here. So stuff like this will make it rounded out a little bit later. So one of the other things to remember about this is I see it a lot. Oh, I can't do this. When I first started working in Illustrator and tracing stuff out to draw it, it could take two hours, 1 hour. And this elephant, when the one I did on this originally, this took me up to, I think, 30 minutes now, 20-30 minutes. So you're going to get faster the more you do this, and it's just practice. It's the same thing of putting in the time to do it. You can see I'm pretty zoomed in here, but you don't have to be this zoomed in. I mean, we could come out here and do that, draw it like this, but that's just going to be preference, your preference. So we'll just keep going around here, and we're trying to stay towards the outside. When you're drawing, try to, keep to whatever pattern you're doing. If you're drawing on the outside, draw on the outside. If you're staying on the inside, stay on the inside. All right, so we got our outline here. Let's get that selected. Let's put the stroke up to 3 millimeters. And we can see here's our outline. Now it looks pretty jagged. We got places like this where there's really sharp corners and edges. What we can do is we can select all this, go to Object, Path, Simplify, and now we can take this and we can go to more simple design. And now this is going to be perfect, but I like to start off using this. And you can see we still got some sharp corners. So let's zoom in here. And I selected this node. And what we have here, we can pull that little dot and change the radius of those corners. That's one way of smoothing out something. We can also, with our object selected, let's come here. That's the shaper tool. We want to find, oh, where are you, smoothing tool? Smooth. There we go. Just missed it. Oh, there we go. So now we have this selected and we have the smoother tool. We can come in. And there, it smoothed it out for us. And these tusks could be smoothed out a little bit as well. So let's come in here. Smooth out that. And you don't have to be perfect. And again, once you do all that, you can still come in and just mess with the anchor. All right, now let's take a look in Inkscape. So we have the elephant on layer 1 here, so I can't select it. Let's go ahead and turn that off, and let's add another layer here. And we're going to do the same thing here that we did in Illustrator. Sorry, y'all, Inkscape is not my native software. Oh, there we go. And we'll get the pen tool for this and just start drawing as well. And again, you can just use the straight line tool. You don't need to worry about all the curves and everything. We can fix that out after we're done here. I'm going to do this a little bit faster here in Inkscape. It is funny switching between programs to see, just the commands are similar, but they function different. Like dragging your view, you just hold down space and then use your mouse and Inkscape to scroll around. Whereas in Illustrator, you have to hold down your mouse key and drag the way you want to go. No big deal. It's just, differences in the software and trying to remember those while you're filming a how-to tutorial. Yeah. So if you see me mess up and things not go so smoothly in Inkscape, that is why. So again, same things apply here in terms of how long your strokes are and how detailed. The longer your strokes, the less detail you're going to get. The shorter your lines, the more detail you're going to get. So, and we're almost finished here. And there we go. Now we have our outline. So we're going to come over, I believe it's fill and stroke. We're on the stroke type right here, and we're going to change that up to 3. We're going to come back over to our layers. We're going to disappear that layer. And as you can see, we got all our nodes just like we did in Illustrator. We're going to make sure they're all selected. See, they turned yellow. We're going to come up here and we're going to hit Make Nodes Symmetric. And so now you can see we have a much more rounded and less sharp curves. Is it perfect? No. Again, I think Illustrator in this regards has a little bit better. Again, I haven't played around, so there could be better ways to do this. Just in my experimentation with Inkscape, this was what I found to work. But also, as we can tell right here, that is not going to work for our cutting. We don't want anything like that. So we're going to delete that. We're going to select these 2 nodes, and then we're going to come up here and join selected nodes. And now we have a much nicer curve there. And again, this is going to be a little bit too much for the CNC. And you can see it joined them. All we have to do here is take these arms for the Bezier curves. I think I said that right. And make it to something we can use. Again, if this was a project, I go in and I'd really work on cleaning all these up, getting them set to the way I like. Can see here, like this here, I would want this straighter. And a little bit more cleaned up. But that'd also be better if I took a little bit more time and used a little bit more detail. I'd get closer to what I wanted. All right, let's go back to Illustrator. So we have the outline. And as you saw in my piece, my outline, I used that with a V-bit to get a nice nice angled edge to add a little depth to it. So let's go ahead, let's put back the image so we can see and get our pen tool back out. Let's scroll in here. And as we can see, we have these lines here on the elephant for the trunk. So let's just go ahead and start drawing a few of these. And again, we're going to do the same thing we did on the outline with these interior lines. So let's just go ahead. We have 2, 3. That sounds like a good number. Now at this point, I know I want my lines about 3 millimeters, maybe 4 millimeters thick. But if I was just to export this as an SVG right now, all I have is a line, and it would just be this line. It wouldn't get those tapered edges I want. So in Illustrator, I'm going to select these. I'm going to come up here, and then with profile, I'm going to select this. Now I have these tapered edges. So it gives me, again, more dimension. So let's select all 3, and we can go to Object, Path, Simplify, and let's bring down. And there we go. Now we have those nice, clean, tapered lines that give us a really, really cool effect. Let me show you how to do that in Inkscape, but believe me, we're not finished yet with either of these. So let's go over to Inkscape. Let's turn back on this layer. Let's zoom in. And again, we're just going to do 3 lines in here. Do I have the right one? Please. So, no. There we go. Maybe I did. Yep. All right. Now we're drawing lines. I also hear people say, hey, oh, I hate that. Forgot. In Inkscape, let's draw this again. I'm used to hitting escape to finish drawing my lines. There we go. Double click at the end when you're done, then you can hit escape. Now we're going to draw another line. We'll do another 3. And one more. Now let's get all 3 of these selected. Come back over here. Change this to 3 millimeters. Now, this is a little bit different in how they go about this. They do have a tapered function in Inkscape, but there is a better tool to use. So if you don't have this right here, path and effect, you can come down to path or come over to path and then come down to path effect. And that will open this box right here. Now, only one item can be selected. So this is where it could become a little cumbersome. I haven't found a way to copy paths over to other items, but you can still get this. And so once we hit this plus sign here, it's going to open up all the different path effects, and we want to find power stroke. We'll click on it. Let's zoom in a little bit here. While we do that, let's take this off so we can see it. All right, now we want to go over to node. We want to be able to edit and play around with these. And so in Power Stroke, you're going to see these 3 blue dots here. And that is going to control how thin or thick your ending points are. And you can even mess with the nodes here. There we go. And how thick or thin the middle of your section is. So you have 3 points that you need to pay attention to while you're doing this. So we got this one done. Now we can click on that, and then we can hit simplify. And that didn't seem to do much for us. Oh, so used to A being for node select. Now we want to get all of our nodes selected here. Again, this one isn't a perfect example, but working with what we got. And now you'll notice up here we have these options. And I'm going to select make selected nodes symmetrical. And now we have a much cleaner line. And if you still wanted to fine tweak, you can, just like you do in Illustrator, play around with the handles so you can change the curve. I still have all selected. Let's come in there. So you can see here, this is because this handle is outstretched beyond that handle. Let's move that in. See why we still got that dip there. There we go. All right, and there, for that. That looks much better compared to what these are. So now you would need to repeat this process on all 3 of these lines. I'm going to go ahead and delete these 2. And again, like I said, once we did this in Illustrator, there's still one more step we need to do to make sure we get this shape exported when we get it ready to export into an SVG for cutting, so we can get this shape and not just a straight line. So back in Illustrator, we're going to select our 3. We're going to go to Object, and then we're going to Expand Appearance. And so now you can see instead of a line, we have a shape. And then for Inkscape, let's get this one. We want to go to Path, and then I'm going to use Combined, I believe it is. No, Combined is the other one. So let's get this selected. Object, path, stroke to path. So now if we double click that, there we go. Now we have an object, and this would export as an SVG. We could run a V-carve on it, which just adds a little bit of personality, doesn't let your artwork be so flat if it was just a straight line. Now, one of the other things you'll see on my piece is how on the wall art, the big one, I have that circle, or that I have that oval, and it has that pattern around. So we're just going to create an oval real quick, similar to what I did earlier. Not going to be perfect. Well, I'll say that. So here, as you notice, I just used the text and I made this 8. I'm going to go to Object again and Expand. Can see now it is not a line or text or anything. It is an object. It can be played around with and manipulated as such. And I turned mine into an infinity. So let's change that to blue. And then on brushes, I can take this, drag and drop it in here. I want to make a pattern brush, hit OK. And then I can go in and change all the settings to get it exactly the way I want. But we're just going to do this real quick to show you how you can do yours. We're going to hit OK. So now I have this pattern brush. So if I click on this oval and then I click here on pattern brush, hey, it puts that pattern on the object I wanted to. If I want to edit it, I can just double click here. We can add spacing. Let's just say 15%. Okay. And so now you can see it's giving me spacing in between all of those. Now, let's jump back over to Inkscape. So what we're going to do, we're going to add another layer. We'll turn this layer back off. And here, we're going to draw a circle. And then we'll come in here, 8. Rotate it, so there we go. Control. Give us an infinity looking object there. Now, if I click here, we should already have the path effects. And we're going to hit plus. And now we're going to find pattern along path. Click that. Now this is still a text, so I need to go to combine. That's where you use it. It's on text. Combine to get a shape. And you can manipulate this as you please, but we're going to leave it as is. So now we're going to select this, Control C. Now click back on our oval here. And we're going to change this to repeated and stretched. And then we're going to come over here, link to path in clipboard. That's the infinity symbol we created. And not quite the result we're expecting, but pattern is vertical, spacing. There we go. And let's change this down to 1 here. And you can see now the width and fill color and everything takes all of its properties from the circle, not our selected item. So let's say if you were doing more of an artistic, you could come here, fill, and there you go. You got your fill. We'll leave it undone. Main thing is here, we want to mess with the stroke style and all that. So let's go back here. And then you have other variables you can play around with to get your design looking how you want it. And that's closer to what I envisioned with the Infinity. And on this, just like with the line, converting the lines over, we are going to want to convert these objects and get each one of these, into an object itself. You don't convert them and you save it over, all you're going to get is a circle. You have to apply these effects. As you can see, click here, it is gone. The effect has been applied. So we can keep going back. Let me get that selected, and there, our pattern is back. Once we get everything designed, get all our tool paths and all that fun stuff, it's time to get it on the long mill and cut everything out. For the top part of the frame, I used a 90-degree V-bit, and for cutting, I used a down cut bit. So the top of my board is nice and clean, and then the back side isn't going to be seen. So if any of the plywood or anything chips off, like you can see on one of the tusks, no big deal. It's not going to be seen. Now for the second piece, on the tray part and the back side of the frame, I did use an upcut bit for that. And I even used the V-bit for contouring out all the shapes and the sides of the tray and the wall art. Once we get everything cut out, it's sand, baby, sand, sand, sand. That was a lot of sanding, and man, it was 104 degrees. I have to give a big shout out to my brother for giving me his portable AC unit. While it may not have been 70 degrees in the garage, it was at least closer to 90, a little bit more tolerable than 104. So get everything sanded, and then of course glue it all up, the front frame and the back frame. Now I did a back frame for this because I wanted to insert the LEDs in acrylic. I also think it gives it just more depth, and then I could also cut out 4 holes for standoffs. I just used wooden little, I just cut up some wooden dowels I could put in there for standoffs, so it would come up off the wall. The LEDs could shine back and hit the back wall as well. So that's why I did 2, plus I got the tray. You could also just do that front part and no LEDs or anything, and just put a little hanger on the back to hang up if you just want to do that elephant head. Completely up to you, but I love acrylic. I love LEDs. What can I say? So got it all glued together, everything sanded down. And that's all just prep work for the next steps, which is staining. Now, I've had issues in the past with staining, and so did some research, and the big thing here was I wasn't pre-staining, so this is my first time with pre-staining. but it seems to have helped a lot. So I got some water-based pre-stain. I also used water-based stain and water-based polyurethane. I believe that's what it was, polyurethane, whatever, for the finishing coat. I applied a thin layer of pre-stain on both the tray and the wall art piece, and then let that dry, do a quick sand, do the back, do a light sand after you do that pre-stain. And it really did seem to help. I didn't seem to get as much blotching. Perfect? No, but way better than anything else I've ever done. And then after that, I stained it. Now on the tray, I think I went a little bit heavy, but overall, still, I like it. Came out better than some of my other projects. But in this case, stain and then sand. I believe I was using 220, maybe even 300 to sand off after I stained. And I can definitely tell you on the tray, I did not go as hard on sanding as I did on the wall art piece. Wall art piece, I really sanded it down. Either way, what I think the hardest part in staining was getting into the V-cut areas, but I used both a synthetic brush, a foam brush, a staining pad to get into all those creaks and crevices and the design, everything I V-cut, carved, all that patterning, because I wanted that to have a really solid look and really highlight those areas. And so while on the wall art, I think it turned out good, just giving it more of a rustic, weathered look, whereas on the tray, it's a little bit darker, doesn't look as worn down. So that's just something I'm going to play with and play around with in upcoming projects as I do more and more wood. And then I put on the clear coat, which again was the water-based polyurethane. And then for final assembly, I put in my acrylic, I get my LED lights out, and then run the strip around the edges. I don't pull off the back yet, just go around. And I used Scotch tape to hold it in place. That way I can get the length and then cut. If you cut on the strip where it doesn't have one of these cut spaces, those LEDs are not going to work. And then so get all that in there. I use some double-sided Gorilla Tape to hold on the control board of the LEDs. And then I also used that double-sided Gorilla Tape. As I didn't have another method of keeping the acrylic in place, I used double-sided tape there to hold both the tape and the acrylic in place. And that seems to be holding up well and not getting any sagging there. But I really have to say I was really impressed how well this strip, its adhesive worked. I've used some where it doesn't even stick. So be cautious and understand how well backside of your LED strips are gonna stick. You may need some more tape or better tape to actually hold them in there. I also did use a hot glue gun on part of this to kind of just spot weld in a sense. But remember, if you use that hot glue and you get any strings, you're going to have to come up and clean it up. Hot glue is messy and it does not like it. The hot glue does nothing but help keep the LED strip and the acrylic in place, not so much that it's keeping the acrylic and the LED strips attached to the frame. That's where the double-sided tape came in, and putting it behind the LED strip and then attaching it to the side of the frame, just getting it in there. And then lastly, put a hanger on this and attached the plastic feet to the back of the wooden dial standoffs. That way we don't go scratching up the paint on the walls. Well, that wraps it up for this video. Thank you everybody so much. Again, big shout out to my brother for that portable AC unit. This project spent a lot of time in the garage. It was very hot. I probably would have burnt up if it hadn't been for that AC unit. Also, a big shout out to my wife and kids for completely understanding just how much time and effort goes into doing all this and bearing with me while I do it. Again, big shout out to CNC Labs for sponsoring this video, and a big shout out to all of you who are watching. Please let me know if there's anything you want to see me cover or go over in any future videos. And remember to hit that bell and subscribe button to keep up with all the latest DE Hammer videos. And until next time, keep making stuff.